It's 4:30 in the morning, 250 years before Christ. You're in the largest city on earth. Not Rome, not Alexandria, not Babylon. Pataliputra. Before the sun has touched the wooden watchtowers, before the 64 gates have creaked open, before the first merchant has set up his stall, an entire machine is already running. A city of 400,000 people, 6 committees of 5 men each, managing every aspect of your life from the moment you wake up. A king whose daily schedule was timed down to the half hour. A spy network so extensive that nothing, not a merchant's deal, not a street argument, not a whispered complaint, went unheard. And at the center of it all, you, the ordinary citizen. The farmer walking through the gates with his cart of rice, the potter firing his kiln, the woman grinding grain before her children wake. This is not the story of kings or battles. This is the story of a single day inside the most organized civilization the ancient world had ever seen. And by the end, you'll know exactly one thing. Could you have survived it? Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador who lived here during Chandragupta Maurya's reign, could not believe what he was seeing. A parallelogram, 9 miles long, 1.5 miles wide, wrapped behind a wooden wall so massive it held 570 towers and was surrounded by a moat. A moat for a city made primarily of wood and mud brick. This was not a settlement. This was a fortress that happened to have civilians living inside it. At this hour, the king himself was already awake. The Arthashastra, Kautilya's ruthless manual of statecraft, dictated his day in segments so precise they border on obsessive. 4:30 to 6 a.m. for receiving reports from his intelligence officers. 6 to 7:30 a.m. for public audience. 7:30 to 9 a.m. for bathing, prayer and a meal. Then administration. Then military inspections. Then more reports. His day didn't end until 9:30 at night. Where the story takes a turn, because for the ordinary person, the day looked nothing like this. For you, living in a mud brick house with a thatched roof, the morning began with water. Specifically, a ring well, one of the simple but ingenious Mauryan inventions that stacked terracotta rings vertically into the ground to reach the water table. You draw water before the heat settled in. Your wife or mother would light the clay stove, cow dung and wood, and begin grinding yesterday's grain into flour for the morning meal. Rice porridge, maybe some yogurt if your family kept cattle, lentils if there was time. And then the gates opened, to now meet the men who actually ran your life. Megasthenes records that Pataliputra was governed by 6 committees, each with 5 members. These were not nobles or priests, they were administrators, bureaucrats, and their job descriptions were terrifyingly specific. Committee 1 handled industry. They regulated who could produce what and where. Committee 2 managed foreign visitors, tracking every Greek, Persian, and Chinese merchant who entered the city, assigning them lodging, even monitoring their movements. Committee 3 managed birth and death records. Committee 4 oversaw trade and commerce, prices, weights, measures. Committee 5 controlled the sale of manufactured goods. And Committee 6? They collected the tax on every transaction, 1/10 of everything sold. Now consider what this means. If you were a farmer bringing your cart of rice through gate 37 this morning, you would be registered, inspected, your goods weighed on standardized scales, your tax calculated before you could even reach the market. And somewhere, a clerk with a stylus was pressing your numbers into a clay tablet. This was 250 BCE. The Romans were still fighting hill tribes. The Chinese had barely unified. And here, on the banks of the Ganges, was a city running on paperwork. In midday, the market was chaos in the best possible way. Pataliputra sat at the crossroads of trade routes stretching west to Persia and east to China. So in the same market, you could find cotton from the Deccan, black pepper from the Malabar coast, destined eventually for Roman tables, horses imported from Central Asia, and silk that had traveled thousands of miles from a place most Mauryans had never heard of. But here's the strangest detail of all, and it gets to the heart of what daily life was really like. Most people in the Mauryan Empire did not eat meat. Notifications, fish, goat and chicken were all eaten. But Buddhism and Jainism had spread so widely, especially under Ashoka, that vegetarianism had become a social norm. Your midday meal was rice or wheat flatbread, lentils cooked with turmeric, cumin and ginger, vegetables, gourds, eggplants, leafy greens, milk, butter, ghee, pickles made from mango or tamarind, preserved in oil and spices. Fragmented profile would be startlingly familiar to an Indian person today. The continuity is that strong. You're eating some version of the same meal that a Mauryan craftsman ate 2,300 years ago. Mauryan economy didn't run on royal decrees, it ran on shrainis, guilds. If you were a potter, you belonged to the Potter's Guild, a weaver, the Weaver's Guild, a blacksmith, a metalworker, a perfume maker. Each craft had its own guild, and these guilds set the prices, enforced quality standards, and even functioned as banks. You could deposit money with your guild and withdraw it in another city. Think about that for a moment. A banking system, with credit, across an empire that stretched from Afghanistan to Bangladesh. This is the reality that Hollywood never shows. This is the daily life that textbooks skip. And when the work was done, before the oil lamps burned low and the curfew bells rang, you played. Chaturanga, the ancestor of chess, had already emerged by this period. Horse racing, wrestling, storytellers and musicians performing in the courtyards of wealthier homes. Flutes, drums, stringed instruments, the same sounds echoing through Indian streets for millennia. But here's where the story takes another astonishing turn. Because when night fell, Pataliputra transformed into something else entirely. Kautilya's Arthashastra is famous for many things, but one of its most chilling passages describes the spy network. The Mauryan state employed informants in every profession, disguised as merchants, monks, servants, even household cooks. They monitored loyalty, they listened for sedition, they reported on corruption, and they reported on you. Businessman the king's morning intelligence briefing, that 4:30 a.m. slot, was fed by reports gathered from spies who had been listening to conversations in the markets, in the guild halls, in the temples, the day before. So when the oil lamps went out in your mud brick house and the night watchman began his rounds on the wooden palisade, you were not just sleeping in the safest city in the world, you were sleeping inside the most surveilled. 570 towers, 64 gates, 400,000 people. And somewhere, in the palace, the king was still awake, reading the reports of what you did today. The Mauryan Empire fell less than 50 years after Ashoka's death. The wooden walls of Pataliputra rotted into the soil. The clay tablets crumbled, the ring wells filled with silt. Today, the city beneath modern Patna is buried under meters of earth, and most of its residents have no idea they're walking over the administrative capital of an empire that once stretched from the Hindu Kush to the Bay of Bengal. But for 140 years, in a city of mud and wood and astonishing organization, ordinary people woke up, ground their grain, paid their taxes, played chaturanga, and slept under the watch of 570 towers. They were not kings or generals. They were potters and farmers and grain merchants and mothers, and they were part of something that, even now, 2,300 years later, still seems impossible. If you enjoyed this journey into the daily life of the Mauryan Empire, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into what history was really like. And let me know in the comments, if you woke up tomorrow in Pataliputra, what's the first thing you'd want to see? As always, we'll see you in the past.